Hey everybody, welcome to the 10 TV Plus version of Weather Impact Show on this Saturday, Friday into Saturday. Michael Behrens and I are tracking the wild weather again heading our way.
Yeah, another round of weather impact alert days, well just one impact alert day, and related to the same reason we had one earlier this week, that potential for ice in the forecast.
I don't know about you, Michael. I mean, I love being a meteorologist. Central Ohio throws everything at us, and we all appreciate that challenge. But this is probably one of the trickiest forecasts. I'd rather personally try and just forecast snow or rain. The in-between stuff is tricky because there's so many things, so many variables.
Yeah.
The surface temperature, the air temperature, what happens to the precipitation is a falls temperature, a lot of those things. The storm we dealt with on Wednesday was a little more clear-cut, and that precipitation held off longer. We saw limited impacts. We'll talk about that in a moment. And tomorrow's system is showing a little bit of fluctuation, as you talked about, a little bit of a northward track. That doesn't mean we're out in the clear. We're still working toward that potential for some ice, but it looks like that impact will be down just a bit. So.
Yeah, and the trickiness of the forecast comes to the fact that we're kind of riding that transition zone between rain further to the south and I wouldn't really say much snow to the north, but more of the
ice.
Yeah, the likely mix that's up to the north. Yeah. And we're in the middle, so our forecast really has the highest chance of variability as we head into the weekend.
Yeah, and that's unsettling for meteorologists, but we accept that challenge. Yep. So I'm going to walk you through the forecast and what we know now and what we're expecting for the next 24 hours and beyond. We do have that 10 weather impact alert that carries us through the afternoon on Saturday. Some light precipitation early. We'll walk you through that. Possibility of a pocket or two of some light freezing drizzle. A better chance of rain and freezing rain showers afternoon, generally about 2 to 6 p.m. Possibility of some light ice accumulations, and then just be careful out there. Like Wednesday and Wednesday night and even Thursday morning, if it looks wet, especially on elevated road surfaces, as Michael will talk about in a few moments, those are the areas we'd be most concerned about. Now, we are watching the temperatures begin to start off the day below freezing and then get above freezing. But keep in mind, this is a temperature every hour, but really in and around Franklin County, officially at John Glenn Airport. You know as well as I do, you live south in Piketon, you live north in Bucyrus. There's a much more variety or variability in the temperatures than what you're seeing right here. That's why we still are focusing that window of opportunity for some freezing rain between 2 and 6 p.m. Now we're going to take a snapshot of time, 7 o'clock in the morning, overlaying the surface temperatures or those air temperatures near the ground with the precipitation. Not a whole lot going on, which is fine, but areas south of I-70, a little bit of snow, a little bit of freezing rain, a little bit of sleet. The operative word there is little. We're not looking for a lot or heavy of showers of any of that, but temperatures are at or just above freezing. As we look at the conditions then going through the day hour by hour, we'll see generally dry weather through about midday, little if any impact through lunch. We do see some change over to some green, a little better chance of some rain, and then a little bit of pink showing up around Columbus or London. It's a very, very brief area of freezing rain, if that, and then we go through the second half of the afternoon. This is when things get a little more interesting. We're seeing that delineation now pushing north of I-70, green, rain, a cold rain, but rain, Columbus all the way down to the south and southeast, and then that freezing rain in pink gets pushed off toward the north. Through the afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock, we're going to watch that freezing rain push all the way toward Bucyrus, Mansfield, Mount Gilead, over near Morrow and Knox County, then to the west near Kenton, and then just about everybody else will see just plain rain. So if you look at the temperatures as we go through the evening hours, they're eventually going to fall, but by then, most of that precipitation is gone. Going back to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, again, when that main area of rain and freezing rain comes in, look at the temperature differences. Columbus 35, a healthy downpour there, 37 in Circleville, 39 in Athens. To the north, Coshocton, Mount Vernon, Mount Gilead, Marion, and Kenton right around 31, 32 degrees. So that ice is still possible off toward the north. So the potential for that, again, pretty much pushed north of I-70. That's a nice change from where it was yesterday, right over Columbus and I-70. Bucyrus about 0.18, Coshocton 0.13, Newark about 1/100 of an inch. It doesn't take much ice to cause some problems, so just keep that in mind as you're making your plans. So 10 weather impact forecast detailing the weekend. Second half of the day is when we feel the chance for ice is greatest, and that will be the northern parts of the viewing area. Sunday, 37 and dry. Monday, not a problem getting back to school and work. Tuesday could be a bit of an issue. We're kind of in that zone. A Wednesday storm, a Saturday storm, a Tuesday storm. We'll look at that potential for some snow moving back in as the storm system passes to our south. Looks like there'll be enough cold air to be mainly snow, which is fine, as we talked about at the opening of the show. But the exact track of the storm will dictate the exact details in our forecast, and those are not yet clear to us, but just giving you a heads up at what might be coming our way on Tuesday. Wednesday, a couple leftover flurries. Thursday could be round number 4 in 7 days. Chance of some snow, some rain or freezing rain out there. Temperatures just at or above freezing. With any luck, we'll dry it out for Friday and see temperatures back around 40 degrees. So we've got a lot of active weather coming up, Michael, but our focus is on the potential for ice on Saturday.
Yeah, that potential for ice on Saturday, as you said, Jerry, is going to be the main focus here at the beginning of the forecast. But we're kind of getting back into the winter pattern. I mean, if you remember from our winter season forecast, we said we were going to see more active winter weather compared to usual. We're getting back to that after some, well, lucky warm weather.
Yeah, we were 64 degrees on Monday. We broke that record. we caution everybody. It's regardless of what the groundhog said. Yeah. It's not spring. We had one day, and now again we're kind of back in that winter groove.
Yeah, indeed. That winter weather heading back into the forecast, and even though it's not looking as bad as it could be with some of that ice drifting off more toward the north, it doesn't mean it can't cause some impacts out there. So I want to dig in a little bit more on those ice risks, and conditions for travel can quickly become dangerous and can really sporadically be dangerous. I mean, you can be driving a lot of distance and not have any ice. There it is. That's the problem.
Caution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of that type of situation, check out this video from Painesville, Ohio. This shows a driver lose control Thursday morning.
Once Bob gets here, do we need anything from them? Can they get off the roadway? Yeah, they're good to go. There was another one. Hey, not touching.
And officers in Painesville said they were helping one driver that had lost control on the icy road Thursday morning when another, an SUV, slid off the road and up a hill. That first driver had slid their car into a guardrail when that second one was caught on dash cam. This is just one example of possible ice impacts, and experts are asking drivers to be careful and just always have supplies in your car in case you become stranded.
Have water, something to eat, chargers. Anytime you find yourself in an incident, it's important to stay in your car.
This advice not just good for one storm, but something motorists should consider throughout the year as well. And further to drive that point home about how a little bit of ice can go a long way, check out this video from South Bend, Indiana. Multiple accidents occurred Thursday morning, that same system we dealt with, due to slick road conditions. Since the ice was so thin, what appeared to be wet roads actually turned out to be ice in some cases. That situation we were talking about. You get a lot of roads you can drive on and be fine, and then you kind of end up in those icy conditions pretty quickly. Speaking of which, South Bend police reported 21 weather-related crashes with no serious injuries early on Thursday. Police also warned sidewalks, parking lots, and other areas that likely haven't been treated or had the salt washed away by rain could easily become slippery in freezing rain conditions. So let's dive a bit deeper on why ice creates so many problems. The good thing is we're on the low end of the event, but it doesn't take a lot of ice to really see those impacts out there. In fact, a quarter inch or less, what we're looking at here, could cause that light ice accumulation on trees as well as potentially scattered power outages, but not very likely. If you have travel plans on Saturday, I wouldn't necessarily cancel them, but if you have maybe something you can put off a day, it's not always the worst idea to just avoid it. But the good news is, again, we're going to be on the lower end here, so our impact should be minimal. Once you get above a quarter inch and especially up closer to a half inch, that's where you get the really impactful ice events where broken tree limbs, power outages, and travel hazards become all but likely. And then over a half an inch is where you really get into some catastrophic icing events. So why do we see this kind of weather in the first place? Well, it all has to do with the temperature setup we have during the winter. So let's take a look at that a little bit more in depth. The cold air that's in place down at the surface, that's hard to push out. Warm air gets shoved above that layer of cold air down near the surface, and that means the liquid rain freezes pretty much on contact in the case of freezing rain, or slightly above the surface in the case of sleet. Either one of these can certainly create travel hazards out there on the roads, and especially in this event and many of them, bridges and overpasses are the prime areas to watch for. They just don't have the benefit of all the thermal mass underneath a normal roadbed, so when the winds sweep down across the ground, they blow both above and below the bridge deck really quickly, pulling that heat away from the bridge surface, and that means the bridges cool down faster and they get colder than the corresponding road surfaces that are backed up by dirt or concrete or some other form down to the surface. and that means those bridge decks become icy before other surfaces would. That would be the most likely occurrence this weekend. Also would be situations like this. This was from Daryl earlier this week in Athens. Look at the kind of shimmer across the landscape there. That's that thin coating of ice that we saw accumulate on surfaces. You can see that here from Cena and Laurelville, in the trees as well. Another view from Richard and Marty in Tarleton, where you can see those icy raindrops dripping from the branch and freezing on their way down. And then that light icing on your cars as well. Jared took this picture in New Lexington. Good time to mention here, lift those windshield wipers before a freezing rain event, and then you don't have to worry about those wipers being frozen to your windshield. Of course, as this system comes through this weekend, we'd love to share your photos here at 10 TV. You can find us on social media, send them to us there, or by texting us at 614-460-3345. Of course, send in any weather photos when it is safe to do so. I want to leave you with one more round of advice here. These are your travel tips, your driving tips. If you're going to be out in these conditions, avoid hitting the brakes. Let off the gas or downshift gears. Let the transmission do the slowing for you. Keep that wheel straight. Hold on tight. Of course, use extra caution on those curves, bridges, and overpasses. And the most important thing is to not overreact. And one more area to watch this weekend, potential flooding. Just to our south, parts of West Virginia and southern Ohio experienced floodwaters after heavy rain from that first system this week, Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. When that swept through the area, residents in Huntington, West Virginia and nearby towns captured videos of floodwaters that rose and rushed through neighborhoods in the area. Huntington is located near the state line between West Virginia and southern Ohio. That area picked up numerous inches of rainfall earlier this week from that system, and well, more could be on the way. So let's take a look at those flooding concerns as of Friday evening. You can see flood watches in place for most of West Virginia. Does not include southern Ohio, but the interesting thing is the flood risk as we head toward this weekend through the day Saturday. Excessive rainfall outlook does call for some possible heavy rain shower conditions that does impact portions of southeastern Ohio. We'll have to keep an eye on that. We did have flood warnings earlier this week that made their way up into Athens County. So again, we'll keep an eye on that this area. But I think the main concern, as you said earlier, Jerry, is really going to be those icy conditions up further to the north. Good news again for us in Columbus. It is pushing a little bit to the north, but our northern viewers are going to deal with that. Our southern ones could deal with flooding.
Flooding, it's kind of interesting too. We talk about any other time of the year. That difference between 3 or 4 degrees doesn't mean that much. Between 40 and 45, not big deal, right?
Yeah, who cares?
Between 30 and 32, 34 degrees, that is a huge difference. That's what we're really talking about, that fine line, and that's what we'll be watching tomorrow afternoon or Saturday afternoon into the second half of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the big thing is really just extra caution. Like I said, you don't really need to cancel any plans out there. It's not that kind of winter storm,
No.
but the one where you just got to be safe instead of sorry, and watch for conditions that could change pretty quickly when you've been driving on otherwise perfectly fine roads.
And we saw some examples of that in a video he had earlier from South Bend and up near Cleveland. It just make the assumption that it's icy.
Yeah.
And one thing you talked about in detail, but we'll emphasize again, the bridges and overpasses, it's not rocket science. It's simply those areas that are elevated, they freeze from both the top and the bottom. So it might be just at or above freezing, but if it is below 32, those areas kind of get that squeeze play going on, and that's where it might be cruising along fine, and then you're not fine. So
that's absolutely where you're going to notice it.
Yeah. One other thing, poking a little bit of fun, but I sent an email out on Wednesday as I went to the parking lot after you went through the parking lot and said, hey, it's icy out here.
Yeah.
And we made an assumption that it was, and we were both very careful. And I told everybody to walk like a turtle. I know my kids are probably going to laugh at me or anybody else that's watching, but so many times people, as they're not expecting ice, they go heel first, and then they slip out from under them.
Oh, yeah.
That could be, they do a wrist, a hand, a back, an elbow. That's very bad.
Yep.
If you keep your center of gravity a little further over your toes, you might look like a turtle when you're walking, but you have a much less
penguin turtle walk.
A friend of mine called it like the Minnesota Shuffle, right? Because you deal with that a lot more. But just be careful out there, whether you're driving, walking, and everything should be fine by Sunday. Just so you know.
There you go.
You got Super Bowl plans. You got some friends over, or you're going somewhere. Whatever you've got going on Sunday, it's going to be just fine.
Awesome to hear.
So that's great. So that's it for your weather update here on 10 TV Plus. Make sure you join us throughout the weekend on air and on 10 TV Plus for more on this weather system as it moves through. Until then, you can always catch up on more news and weather online at 10tv.com.